Good afternoon and good evening. We're back with the fourth installment with Alex Duchesne and my co-host Amanda. How are you both doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
Great.
I'm fine, thank you. So we was exploring your childhood and all the way through to present day in the first three episodes. I really want to look at the Jewish and the politicized side of you, which has come to the forefront since I've known you, really. Um, I guess it started at a young age. You spotted a book about the PLO in your house at a very young age, actually.
Oh, wow, yeah. Yeah, so we had when I was growing up, my parents were very politicized. My mom is from Morocco, my dad is from France. My mom's family came to Canada. She came here with her parents and her siblings in the late 60s. But from what I don't know all the details. My sister and I have been kind of piecing things together, but from what I'm understanding, the extended family started to leave Morocco, like in the probably late 50s, early 60s. And a lot of my family went to Israel. A lot of my mom's parents had multiple siblings that had kids. So all of those people, a lot of them went to Israel. And so growing up, Israel was a constant topic of conversation in my house. From what I understand, my mom had a bit of an activist soul herself. And she was very into politics. Like, if she could have had a career in politics, she would have. Like, she loved politics. And so did my dad. So Israel was always a topic of conversation in the house. And when we were a kid, one of the main coffee table books in my living room was a book about the PLO and how it was formed and everything about it. And like I was 7, I knew who Arafat was. I knew
Yeah.
who he was. I knew what a kafia was at age 8. I knew what from the river to the sea meant. I knew all of it at a very, very young age. Um, and I think that comes also from the fact that, the same way um, Ashkenazi people have this very, very intense need to continue telling their children and their grandchildren, the history of what their people went through.
Yeah.
Jews from the Middle East also had that same kind of thing where they wanted to teach their kids about why they had to leave the Middle East and what's really going on over there. Propaganda didn't start, on
Yeah.
October 8th.
Yeah.
When I remember being a kid and war would break out in Israel, and right away I would hear my mom tell my dad, "Oh, you know what's going to happen now in the news." And I would ask, my sister and I we would ask, and we would be like, "What do you mean?" And she would tell us they're going to portray things to make Israel the bad guy
Mhm.
in the news,
Yeah.
which is not what's actually happening on the ground. And we knew that because again, we had family there. We would talk to them about.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
I
we
think
had
I think you
yeah,
make a very interesting point. I mean, for me personally, being Ashkenazi, it was more from you were from the shtetl, and it was that movement of,
exactly.
of the migration of people into England in particular, and then to the States. That was the
Yeah.
message that we got. It wasn't the political side; it was the emotional side of
Well,
survival. Of survival.
not that there wasn't the emotional side, but what I mean is that I mean, obviously I learned about the Holocaust and it's a very important part of our story that and even though I'm not Ashkenazi, for me, it's part of our
Yeah,
collective story.
Yeah. Of
But what I
course.
mean is that I learned at a very, sorry, my eyes are bothering me again. I learned, at a young age, just because my family's from Morocco, about also the persecution of Jews in the Middle East is what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Uh,
That wasn't ever portrayed in our
exactly,
household ever.
exactly, right? That's something
Yeah,
that you
Yeah.
probably didn't hear about, but we heard about it because of our family.
yeah.
My parents, we spoke to us about what happened, why people had to leave Morocco. Obviously, I went digging further when I got older and I wanted to learn the facts, but
Uh,
we learned at a very young age that, like, we knew that there were Jews from Iran and from Yemen and from Morocco and Egypt, and that's where our family was from. So yeah, for me, it was something that the recent war, there was a lot of stuff that kind of came back to the surface for sure.
Did they have any little? I remember my nan. She had little idiosyncrasies, little Jewish idiosyncrasies, where she wouldn't actually spit. She, when she was speaking ill of somebody, she'd go like that and turn to the side and make a gesture to
Yeah.
ward off evil and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Listen, I can't remember anything specifically right now on the spot, but for sure there was, and there was also a lot of fighting. I remember my my uncle Emil was very far, he was right wing. He was very right leaning. And I was, I think this was 2005 2005 when, the starting or the conversation about basically leaving Gaza.
Gush Kativ.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, was starting to happen. And it was Yom Kippur, and I was left leaning. I was 20 years old. This was 2005.
Yeah, 2005, six. Yeah.
So I was in 20. I was 30 years old, and I was left leaning at that, not far left, but I was definitely left leaning. And we started to talk at the dining, at the table, and I, my, and I'm a pacifist. I ultimately I'm a peace lover. And so I was hopeful. And so I was talking about hope that night. And my uncle, who didn't fully agree with what was going on, was basically saying the complete opposite of what I was saying. And we were fighting about it on Yom Kippur night. Like, you know what I mean? So that constant conversation was always in my house.
I actually wore an orange ribbon during that time as well, in solidarity with
Yeah.
the residents of
Yeah,
Gush
I
Kativ.
remember that.
Mm,
It was intense.
very.
Yeah.
Where do you find yourself today, if you don't mind me asking? Where's your political leaning? I mean, I feel we're being forced right wing in terms of our politics with Israel. We're being forced to take that stand.
I Politically, I don't know. I'm kind of homeless right now. I'm still the political part is the part that I'm still trying to figure out.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of, my Jewish life, things have literally taken a 180 for me since October 7th.
Same.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. The last I think since I moved to Toronto, my Jewish life really kind of took the back burner. And it's not that I didn't love it or wasn't attached to it. It's just that I was extremely secular. There wasn't a lot of practice left in in my life, in my day-to-day life. I didn't do Shabbat anymore. I didn't keep kosher. I wasn't really doing much for the holidays, which I still was doing some when I lived in Montreal. And so it became kind of this part of me that was there, but it was very secondary to me being a woman, being an artist, being a mother, being, all those other things. And I think I realize now in retrospect that it's also because I did have some episodes of anti-Semitism in my life. Not the hating part, more of like the ignorance and um stereotyping kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
I got a lot of that too. Yeah.
But I think that, once I came here and I was more and more secular, I kind of got really comfortable with not having to explain who I am anymore. Because I had to do that a lot when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like, oh, somebody would say, like, basically, I remember like when I did that switch from people wishing me Merry Christmas and me saying, oh, thank you, but I don't celebrate Christmas,
Mhm.
to me, just getting to that point where I would just say Merry Christmas. I would just say thank you, Merry Christmas back. Because it was just easier. Because I didn't want to have that conversation anymore. I didn't, I was so fed up of like, what do you mean you don't celebrate Christmas? Of course you celebrate Christmas. Everybody does. And of course, that's not hate. Like there's nothing, they're not trying to be hateful or anything. It's just ignorance. And so I got very comfortable with not having those conversations anymore. Or when I would tell them when I would tell someone that I'm Jewish, they would be like, "Oh, do you eat matzo ball soup?" And I'm like, "No, I eat couscous." "What do you mean you eat couscous?" "Oh, my family's from Morocco." "Oh, well, then you're not Jewish, you're Muslim." I'm like they would literally tell me, "Oh, you made a mistake, you're not Jewish, I'm like, "The fuck is wrong with you? Like, I know who I am." So I got fed up with having those conversations, and I think I got very comfortable, and I don't deny that. Um, and then October 7th happened, and everything changed for me. Everything fucking changed.
Your rhetoric changed.
When I saw the reaction of the world, when I saw people celebrate what happened, it broke
Yeah.
me. It fucked with me in a huge way. It absolutely, I just felt like I had lived my entire life believing in this world, this image of what the world was, and it wasn't that. Like, it was one thing to listen. I always understood that, Israel was a sensitive topic. My entire life, every time I had to mention, or if the word Israel came into the conversation, my heart would start beating faster
Yeah.
because I
Me too.
knew
Yeah.
that Israel is just one of those, since it's always been, for whatever reason, a subject, a taboo subject.
Yeah,
People
it's contentious for
exactly right.
everyday
And I
conversation. Yeah.
always knew that. So it's not like I expected people to react the same way they reacted towards, America when 9/11 happened.
Which was completely different. A completely
But
different reaction.
night and day.
Yeah.
But there's a middle ground between those two. I certainly did not expect people to celebrate it. And when I saw that, it's like a switch went on in me where everything about me that is Jewish just came back like tenfold, a thousandfold, you know? Um, yeah.
Did it completely find yourself, I don't know what's the word, not drowning, but struggling to cope with the
At the,
volume
uh,
of what we were seeing on a daily basis?
yeah, the first few months I did, but I was going on so much adrenaline. I was in fight or flight mode literally for I think probably the first 3 months. And I didn't go to war physically, but I went to war in my head. I could not work, and I threw myself into, social media advocacy and helping my local community any way I could. I would show up like every event that I could physically show up at, I would show up, and I would try to help, and I would volunteer. Um, it was, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I could not, I had a very hard time processing the way the world reacted, because for me, when I woke up that morning and we learned what was going on in Israel, there was no, there had been so many wars, and there had been so many, the intifadas, and there had been so much
Yep.
unrest in Israel that wars had become routine for people that are, that are Jewish or that have family in Israel, that know Israel. It becomes routine. Oh, there's a war in Israel.
Quick
This
spat, quick 2 week spat, and it'd be over, and you kind of
exactly.
just brushed it off.
Like the minute that we heard, that the news started to trickle in, and we found out what was going on, it was instant. Like, this was different, and we knew it immediately. I called my sister and I was like, dude, what the fuck's going on? And there was no, this is a war, this is uprising, this is resistance. There was none of that. It was a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't expect people to react as warmly as they did with 9/11, but I assumed that the world would name it for what it was, which was a horrible, disgusting massacre and a terrorist attack. And when the world didn't, and not did they just didn't condemn it, but started celebrating it and call it resistance. And I was just like, where am I? Where the fuck am I?
And
And
it's still today. I had somebody literally this morning say to me, the Nova Festa massacre was a legitimate target and strategy
Eh,
because back in 1946, Riem and the kibbutz there was actually part of the Gaza envelope, so they were just taking it back. And I just went, and the guy was a DJ, and I said, I can't believe how it's lost on you when I know what you do for a living. I know how you make your money. So for you
but
to say this,
what kills me is that, even like, okay, like for me, it's about indigeneity, like I'm not one of those people that's going to be like, it's in the Bible, the land was given it to us by God. It's just like, because people don't believe in God. Not everybody believes in
no,
God, but we are indigenous to the land. But let's say, hypothetically speaking, you want to believe that we're colonizers and we're all those things that they call us. Is that still an excuse to come into people's houses, take their kids, and kill them and rape women? And like, does that mean that now, like, the indigenous people of America could come into your house, my house, and rape your kid, and you'd be okay with that? You'd be okay with it based on the fact that you're saying that it was justified, then you'd be okay with the indigenous people of America, whoever they are, come into your house one night, take your kids, rape your daughter, behead your husband, and
mm,
you'd be cool with that because it's resistance and it's taking back land.
that's
So
exceptionally poignant.
that's what kills me is that
Even
even
if,
if we're not indigenous, we're colonizers, I'm sorry. We're colonizers. We are all those things that they accuse us of. Does that mean that we deserve to be massacred like people were massacred on? So that's when for me, the whole, like, it's about land, I was just like, that's a bunch of bullshit. This is just the new cause that anti-Semitism has attached itself to, and gives anti-Semitic people a legitimate excuse to hate on Jews. That's all. And for Jewish people, we saw that right away. We saw it right away for what
yep,
it was. Um,
People are emboldened now, and with social media being the way it is too, everyone already has a platform, everyone has a voice who people frankly shouldn't have a voice, and they use their message for hatred, and it's just a circle, and it's nonstop, and it gets worse every single day, no
yeah,
matter what.
but
the Gaza issue seems to hit their ego right at their core. Any other Muslim country, be it Syria, be it the Democratic Republic of Congo, be it Sudanese issues, they turn a blind eye. But the
Nobody cared
Gaza,
about Yemen. Nobody
nope.
cared about Syria, what they did to their own people. Bashar al-Assad's living a great life in Russia right now. He's apparently an eye surgeon. So, I mean, nobody
Yeah, yeah. He
seems
trained in London as an eye
that.
surgeon. Yeah,
I mean,
and yeah, and that's what got me, because I remember when I was younger, my family telling me about Israel and the history, and I went to school. I was very interested in I've always been, again, because of my interest in sociology, anthropology, and archaeology, automatically, if you're interested in all those things, whether you're Jewish or not, you're going to be interested in Jewish history, because Jewish history, is old. Yeah,
yes,
in
very.
Israel
so,
specifically,
right.
Israel is just as
So,
much a part of
yeah.
Catholicism and
So
Islam.
I took a lot of university classes, not just because I'm Jewish and I wanted to know my own history, but just because I was interested in all those things. I was in university in sociology, and so I took sociology of Judaism, sociology of Israel, and I learned a lot that I didn't learn through my family. My family taught me our lived history, the little bit that they told us, because my family was very hush hush about a lot of things, but I found out things eventually. And then I learned, the facts, the actual facts. But when I was younger, my family would tell us, oh, it's going to happen again, or, like, don't, they would tell us about anti-Semitism and, the way they were persecuted and all those things, and don't think that it can happen again. And it's not that I didn't believe them, it's that I was an idealist and I really believed that the world had evolved
Yeah.
past that level. I knew there was anti-Semitism. As long as there's going to be human beings on the planet, there's going to be hate.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But I never thought that I would see the level of propaganda that we're seeing today. I never thought that I would see people actually saying, maybe Hitler was right. I never thought that I thought that I would see people saying, oh, Israel is doing this and let's slap their hand. And I thought I would see all those. And by association, if you're Jewish, then you're a bad person. I
Yep.
thought I would see that. I didn't think that I would see thousands of people marching in the streets chanting for the death of Jews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frankly, I did not.
I had
That,
someone yelling in my face about death
Yeah.
of Jews right in my face. I mean,
And so when that started, it was like PTSD. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I felt the PTSD of my ancestors in my body. It's like if I felt like everything my ancestors had experienced, plus all the things that I heard when I was a kid about the warnings that we heard, that we all heard as Jews. You sit at the Shabbat dinner table and your grandparents, they tell you their lived stories and they're like, be careful because if you experience this, my mom telling me, when you're going to hear, because she knew I would hear it one day. She said, one day you're going to hear from the river to the sea.
yeah.
And I remember her, I was 8 years old. She grabbed me by my shoulders and she shook me and she said, don't ever let anybody tell you that it means anything else than what it means, which is the death of Jews. I remember like it was yesterday, but it was the French version because we spoke French. But it was the French version of From the River to the Sea, which at this point I don't even remember what it was exactly, the sentence. But so all that came flooding back and I just went charging and I haven't stopped since, pretty
See,
much.
there's been the campaign with Hollywood actors with the red hands. Now we know, like you just said, we know what that means. That's a reference to what happened in Hebron and
Yeah.
at the police station, and they ripped out their hearts and they ripped out their intestines, and with these red hands on the window of the police station.
But what boggles my mind is somebody asks you to wear a pin in front of millions of people. Don't you have a responsibility to fucking Google it? Like
yeah,
find out what the fuck you're standing for?
yeah,
Like that's what blows my mind.
Yeah,
It's these people that are living in their fucking glass towers, they will endorse anything without researching it, without fucking knowing what it means, without
yeah,
and not even caring how much of an impact it's going to have, because we have seen ourselves the last few months, the chain reaction of like, the media puts out a news story that's false. Boom, 3 days later, 2 days later, Jews are attacked somewhere.
yep.
There's a
yeah,
chain reaction. So, these people, they wear these pins. They don't give a fuck what the fuck it means. They're like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll wear it
of course. Yeah,
because it's cool.
yeah.
Like,
It's
or
trying to
whatever.
be trendy too. Yeah,
That's the cause that you attach yourself to so that you can absolve yourself of whatever and pretend that you're a good person.
yeah.
Oh, I wore a pin.
What's your take on the story that broke a couple of days ago? I'm not going to name the newspaper. I'm not going to give money. In the Israeli press, that soldiers in Gaza had given testimony that they have been told to shoot on sight and kill Palestinians walking up to the new aid centers.
Listen, I can't comment on something that I haven't actually done my research on, so I can't. All I can say is that
it's not helpful, is it, though, when a Jewish newspaper, an Israeli newspaper, is printing these stories?
It's not. It's not. It's not helpful at all. Obviously, it doesn't help what's going on right now. But all I know is from everything that I know, that I have researched, that I have been taught, and that you know as well. The difference, and it's the same thing that I said about Israel the other day, but like the difference between the perception that the world has about the IDF and the actual truth about the IDF.
Yep.
There's not a small difference, there's not a large difference. There is a monumental precipice in between those two truths. And I am beyond the point of trying to convince people that think that IDF soldiers are monsters, because there's so much propaganda out there that has been out there to disprove us. But we know that, you know, the IDF is the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Straight arrow.
Morally
army.
careful.
Exactly. And they have to be, because they know that they are going to be put under a microscope. They know it. And also, you know, because as Jewish people, we have principles that we adhere to, and that is also projected into the way we are in the military. I know that much. Um, you know, my cousin was in the military, and I remember when he came back, and you know, he explained to me certain things about his training that blew my mind in terms of some of the extra steps that are taken in the IDF about certain things. Um, so yeah, like I said, I can't necessarily comment on that particular story because I don't have everything in front of me, or I haven't read everything there is to read about it. But you know, most times I just roll my eyes and you know.
What would be the one positive, just the one, from post October 7th?
Oh, for me personally,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of positive in the sense that I feel like I've had a Jewish spiritual awakening of sorts. I've had and it's still happening. Like I'm still reconnecting with my Jewish culture and my heritage and my roots. And you know, if all goes well, I'm going to Israel in 3 weeks again, for the second time, and also the absolutely incredible network of people. That was something that I didn't see coming because, like a lot of us, we didn't think that the war was going to last that long. We thought it was going to go 2 weeks and it was going to be over. But as a result of, you know, how things kind of evolved, you know, there's been this kind of network, underground network of Jewish people that has formed online. And I've made friends across the world, and good friends, real friends, not just acquaintances.
Yeah.
Friends, you know, like friends that, you know, are going to be at my kid's wedding, like friends.
That's lovely.
And that to me is priceless. Like that's incredible to me. Like if I go to Israel in 3 weeks, like the number of people that I actually know in Israel now, it's crazy to me. I didn't know any of those people 2 years ago. So that's been the silver lining for me. Um, yeah, I
What
think
next? What next for you?
I want to keep working in the Jewish world, in any capacity I can. I'm an idea person. I have a lot of ideas on, you know, initiatives that I'd like to launch and projects that I'd like to get off the ground that could help our community. But you know, I'm one person, I'm self-employed. I need to make a living. I need to pay my bills. So one step at a time. But I just know that, like, you know, before this, I had purpose but I hadn't yet found my purpose. This is it. This is it. Like I'm just going to continue to work in the Jewish community in any capacity I can. Where that goes, I don't know. It could mean writing, it could mean art, it could mean a lot of things. It could mean me, me going having to go to Israel every month. I don't know yet. I have no idea how it's gonna evolve, but I just know that that's where my heart is and that's where I want to continue to be, you know.
Thank you very much for your time. It's been compelling.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much,
having
Colin.
me. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Take care. Thank you. Bye bye.